So who's the top three?
What, right now?
Yeah, top three podcasters right now.
Whoever's on that list, bro.
Right now.
Three of
Top
them.
Joyce.
But what we use, okay, let's talk about the man then ones. Let's talk about the guys first. Let's put the women to one side, one side. Let's talk about for our culture. Yeah. So for the black guys, black scene, black culture. Who would you say are the top three? And I'm going with content, originality, production, and what was the last one I said?
I don't know.
Hold on.
Let's go with that original production.
And one more I used. One more criteria, 1 second. Yeah, production, content, originality, and impact. So top three. I'll put 3 shots in there.
Yeah.
Because you have to, because when it comes to originality,
They started it.
I'll say they were maybe if they didn't start it, they were the face of it.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a bit like Christopher Columbus who found America, like say, and found whatever country he said he came.
Yeah.
No one's done as much big live shows as them consistently.
So we'll say, so we'll put them in the top. In no order. I'm just gonna say 3 shots go into there. So who else would you put in there? Originality, content, production.
90s baby.
Yeah, pretty nice, baby.
Okay, so there's only space for one more now.
And a pretty spray. Because you talk about impact and stuff.
Yeah.
And although I don't agree with some of the content that he makes and stuff, it's not for me personally. He does have an impact on a lot of people.
Yeah.
And he's consistent and he does what he's meant to do.
No,
He's super consistent.
I was having a conversation with someone the other day.
Super consistent.
Now, has what a podcast is changed? Because apparently a podcast is something that's meant to have audio form. Now, Spray's podcast is only on YouTube, if I'm not mistaken.
I don't know.
Is there an audio form to it? And also, what do you consider? What is a podcast to you?
A podcast is by the definition of the word, it's a.
Someone said the other day to me, this is a vlog.
It's not a vlog. It's not a vlog. It'll be a show.
No, a show has a production. I just asked me yesterday.
But this is a production. However small a production is production. I can have production in my bedroom on the phone. It has to be. It depends how you look at it from a perspective.
So vlog, podcast, or show?
It's a show. It's a show because it was never meant to be a podcast.
Vlog, podcast, or show?
Show.
Okay, for those who watch this, what would you consider what we doing in this garden, or whether it's in Chiz's front room? Would you consider this to be a vlog, a podcast, or a show? Just put it in the comments.
And the reason why I say it's a show is because one, it was never intended to be a podcast. It was literally. I remember speaking to Chiz about it, and he said, "I want to film in the gym, but I want our conversations to be audible. I don't want to be mic'd up."
Okay.
I tried to introduce the microphones. There's too many issues with it, so this is where we're at with it now.
Okay.
Now you can have the definition of a podcast is just a digital audio file. Now you have video podcasts, right? But when you say video podcast, traditionally they're in a studio, but you don't have to use a podcast microphone for it to be a podcast. You don't have to be in a studio for it to be a podcast, and there's no defined length of what a podcast is, and because there's not really, to my knowledge, anything that we speak about originality. I don't know of anyone doing what we're doing and filming how we're filming. So in that category, I put us quite high on the list.
So would you put 90s babies over HC?
I would say so.
And the reason why you would put, so I think you can't deny Young Spray.
Yeah.
As much as people may not like the content and have issues with his delivery and what he says, and
it's just not for us.
He's a protagonist or antagonistic.
No, it's absolutely fine.
As he is, I would say you're talking impact.
Yep.
And his platform.
Yep.
And you're talking views.
Yep.
I would argue and say that if you're talking views and impact, I could argue and say amongst the lads, the man, them, whatever, his podcast at the I don't know. This is the difference between Free Shots and everybody else. I don't think anybody can pull out an audience like Free Shots can, and I don't think anyone can pull those numbers out. Nah.
What was their show?
Royal Albert Hall.
Yeah,
like 3,000 people.
3,000 people.
Yeah, I think that's the capacity of Royal Albert Hall.
Okay.
I could be wrong. Let me just check the capacity for Royal Albert Hall. 1 second. Royal Albert Hall capacity. Royal Albert Hall capacity. It says it's. Oh wow. It says. It says basically today's some 1,268 seats out of the hall's total possible. So basically, the capacity is 5,000, but 1,200 of these seats apparently they don't use. So you can roughly say it's about 4,000. So call it 3,637 capacity.
And they sold it out, I believe. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I don't think anybody's drawn out those numbers like Free Shots. You might get more views. So I would like to see Young Spray do a live show and see whether or not he can pull out those numbers.
It would be interesting, but I also think his audience is different, to my knowledge anyway. I don't think the Free Shots audience versus his audience, I don't think they're the same. I don't think they have the same habits or tendencies or even access to money. I don't think it's the same.
Yeah, but I think his podcast, and Winners Talking would have a shout.
Okay.
Yeah,
Winners talking have a shout. Because I think you got to put Young Spray, you got to put 3 shots.
Mm.
Then I think it's then a battle out of Winners talking,
90s Baby could sell out.
90s Baby,
Yeah.
and maybe
if you're
HC.
saying top 3, 90s Baby.
Because you don't
for sure.
consider Back Chat to be a podcast, do you?
I wouldn't say so. No.
That's a show.
I would say it's a show. Yeah.
Okay, so then that's why we wouldn't put them in it because their impact, you can't deny their impact.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But Andy classes it as a pod.
Does he? Are you sure?
Yeah, because the other day when Made You Think put that post up,
Okay.
he was like, "Rah, all the work we've done all this time, and still don't get no recognition."
Yeah.
So he
I
classes it-
wouldn't say that's a podcast.
Yeah, I see it as a show. I don't see it as a pod.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But he like spoke of it like it was a pod.
I would say that's a show. I
Yeah.
think podcast wise, I'd say you definitely got to put Young Spray. Definitely got to put 3 shots.
Yeah.
Then I think it's then a battle now between 90s Babies, Winners Talking.
I don't think that's a battle,
And
man.
I think you've got to put 90s Babies. They're in it.
I think 90s Baby top
Yeah.
3.
Yeah, I think
if
those
you're
would be
doing
top
top
three.
5, cool.
Yeah, I
but
think
not-
top 3.
they because
Yeah.
they could sell out a venue.
Yeah, I think
They
top
could
3.
they could sell out a venue.
I think we're talking originality.
They've done a couple of minute grand like.
I don't know what
times,
venues
like,
they've
years
done,
ago.
but yeah.
I think,
But their platform's bigger now as well.
Yeah.
I tell you who.
they've doubled or tripled since then.
I tell you who really could have taken that spot if they carried on. What was the podcast called with Tricky and what's his name? What's the guy's name, man? Lippy. What was their podcast called again?
No idea.
Remember they had a podcast?
Yeah.
I know they had
And
it,
they were
but
getting views.
They're
They
getting views.
I don't remember what it was called.
because technically not saying Young Spray took over them because it's whole different content, but I think Young Spray was technically I think you'd call it the man them because he's from the street road, whatever you call it. His podcast was like the kind of like roadman kind of insight into their life, kind of raw kind of podcast, which I think his was not. Would you say his was the first?
No behavior.
No Behavior is probably
Yeah,
The first
yeah,
one, that's
yeah.
kinda
No
like
behavior
that.
was the first. Yes, but then I think you would argue and say the content on both sides are completely different. But what's interesting is that there's a space for everybody
Yeah.
to have dialogue.
Yeah.
You know, because Winners Talking, I would see that podcast as a platform. Would you say that's an interview platform? Because it seems like they have more guests than it's just the 2 of them talking, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's more of an interview platform. isn't it?
I think so. Yeah.
But it's still a podcast.
It's still a
but more of an
podcast, but
interview platform.
interview
And I
based.
say
It's a guest based podcast. So traditionally, guest based podcasts are more difficult to do because you rely on the guest to turn
But then
up.
Young Sprays is kind of that as well, then, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because it started off with guests all the time. Then it kind of moved to kind of like him and Ice Cream. Then it kind of went to having more guests. But so if you was going to pigeonhole each podcast, what would you say Young Spray's podcast is?
In what regard?
So would you say it's an interview platform? Would you say it's talking about life?
I'd just say it's a conversation.
Just a conversation,
platform.
just a conversation.
To mine, yeah.
Yeah?
I would say it's an open conversation.